New videos every day.
What's your reaction when you get out of the shower and look in the mirror and see yourself naked? Most Americans probably think, thank God we wear clothes. Or maybe you think to yourself, I really need to lose some weight. Or maybe you just think to yourself, bleh. Where does that extra padding come from? What are the different factors that add up to contribute to the state of our bodies, how much we weigh, or how healthy we are? Some people may say, it's just my genetics, or I'm just big boned. Others may say, I've tried, but I just can't lose weight. Well, luckily there are only a handful of factors that contribute to the physical condition of your body. And in this video, we're going to discuss genetics and how it relates to weight gain and obesity. Now, first off, claiming that obesity is genetic is really not a correct statement. Now, you may be thinking, whoa, Corrina, are you telling me that overweight and obesity is not due to genetics? And sadly, that's exactly what I'm saying. Let me explain. Let's look at some facts. The obesity rate in America has more than doubled in the last 30 years. And in recent years, obesity rates are increasing all over the world, even in undeveloped countries. But genomes don't change that quickly and in such a large population. In an isolated population, it takes anywhere from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of years for the actual DNA and the actual human genome to change. So, assuming that the genetics of the population of America could have changed in 30 years is really pretty absurd. In a short period of time, like 30 years, genes just cannot be responsible for broad changes in a population of animals or humans. And this becomes especially apparent when you take a look at population genetics, which actually studies how genes and changes in DNA spread throughout a large population. So here's an example. Let's say that Joe is born in Ohio with a gene that predisposes him to be obese. Well, there are 310 million people in America. So how many generations of Joe's offspring would have to successfully reproduce and still be carrying that gene before that gene was able to spread to a population of 310 million people? Well, Joe's genetic line is likely that it could even die off, and even if it didn't, after 100 years, that gene would have barely even scratched the surface of 310 million people. Likewise, it doesn't matter what your racial background is. We are seeing increased obesity rates in all of the different racial ethnicities. Caucasians, African Americans, Hispanics, Native Americans, Asians, and even Eskimos are all seeing increased percentages of their population that are suffering from overweight and obesity. Now, certainly genetics do have some influence on our bodies and how our bodies respond to different foods or different activities, and we'll talk about that in more detail later in the video. But to say that obesity is caused by genetics, or that genetics is solely responsible for someone being obese, is a very dangerous thing to do. So why is it a dangerous thing to do? Because you can't change your genetics. Reaching into someone's DNA and selectively pulling out or altering their genes is still the stuff of science fiction. So what happens when someone says, I'm overweight because of my genetics, is it's the ultimate admission of defeat. At first, blaming the extra weight on genetics might sound like a good excuse, but in the long run, it is the ultimate signing over of all responsibility to something you have no power to change. So it's like throwing up your hands and saying there's nothing I can do about my weight, so I might as well drink Cokes and eat snacky cakes all day while I lounge in front of the TV, because there's nothing I can do, it's my genetics that made me fat. So what genetics actually do is determine how our body will respond to the real factors that cause obesity. So certainly there are genetic differences. Some people can't drink milk or can't eat wheat. One person may respond better to eating a huge amount of carbohydrates than another person. But both people will still gain weight when they consume a huge amount of carbohydrates. It just may be that one man gains it a lot faster than the other. So what is the influence of genetics on our weight and our overall health? Genetics provides a basic template for the body, but then it's really up to us to decide how we fill that template out. So it's kind of like a website template. The template is used to give the basic foreground of the website and determine basically where things go, but then it's up to you to actually customize the website and make it your own. And your genetic template works in pretty much the same way. It determines basically where things go. So the nose goes here, the mouth goes here, the legs are attached to the hip. But afterwards, what you eat, how much you exercise, how many different toxins you're exposed to, and different disease states in the body will all determine how your body actually ends up turning out. So you can use that website template to create any kind of website you choose. You could create a purple website, an orange website, a big website, or a little itty bitty website. And by controlling what you eat and how much you exercise, you can control the DNA template of your genetics to create a skinny you, a fat you, a muscular you, or a diseased and very sick you. Now, it is true that our genetic template may have some limitations. Not all of us are going to end up looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger did when he won the Mr. Olympia contest at age 20. But you also have to realize that bodybuilders usually work out for more than 8 hours a day, and they are on very intense nutritional programs that allow them to manipulate and fulfill their genetic template in the way that they do. Or let's take a look at sumo wrestlers. Here you have some of the largest and most obese people in the world, but sumo wrestlers are often from Japan, and the Japanese only have an obesity rate of about 3%. So here you have a genetic template that is predisposed to being very thin, but sumo wrestlers who eat enough carbs and drink enough beer and exercise their bodies in the correct ways are able to become oversized and obese despite their genetic template. And what would happen when the bodybuilder stops working out every day and starts eating bad foods? He immediately loses his cut and toned physique. Your genetic template has a tremendous amount of possibilities for the different ways that your body could end up. Your genetic template has the potential for a skinny you, an emaciated you, or a fat or obese you, or even an athletic you. Some people may say, I don't have the genetics to become a bodybuilder. But what do you think would really happen if you started working out 10 hours a day and took on a really strict dietary regimen? You see, the genetic template responds to the environment and the way that you use it, and that response is what determines the condition of your body. Chances are you haven't always been the same weight that you are now. Chances are good that at some point in your life you weighed considerably more or considerably less than you do now. Maybe there was a time in your life that you were more active, and so you had more muscle mass. So we're constantly changing our weight throughout our lives, but there's one thing that has not changed, and that's our genetics. Right now, you have the exact same genetics that you did when you were born. What has changed in your life is what you eat, how much you eat, how much physical activity you engage in, and which physical activities you engage in, as well as your exposure to toxins and other things that are a part of your environment. I don't care how overweight you are. If you went to North Korea where people are starving from food shortages and famine, your genetic template would respond by creating an emaciated you. And I don't care how out of shape you are. If you went into a prison and were forced to be doing hard labor all day, like digging ditches and building railroad tracks, your genetic template would respond by developing muscles. And if you work a sedentary job, followed by eating fast food on the sofa, watching TV after work, then your genetic template is going to respond by creating an obese you. But no matter what your body type is right now, there exists a potential for a skinny you, a chubby you, or a buff and totally ripped you. The culmination of all of your experiences, decisions, and activities have led you through your life to arrive at this exact moment you are in right now watching this video. No matter the condition of your body, the state your body is in, how healthy you are, how much weight you have on, is a sum result of all the things you've ever put in your mouth, every physical activity you've ever engaged in, every toxin you've ever been exposed to, etc. And if you are unhappy with how your genetic template has turned out, then you have to stop doing the things you've been doing that have gotten you here in the first place. If you're unsure of what to do, start watching more of my videos, because the more that you learn about nutrition, the more you will be able to control your body, the health of your body, and use your genetics in your own favor rather than feeling like your genetics are the thing working against you. And if you've been trying to lose weight and you feel that you just can't, then it's important to recognize that most of the environmental factors that are a part of our modern lifestyle here in America are going to elicit that genetic response to become overweight and unhealthy. If we're eating the processed foods that are everywhere and kind of addictive and really hard to avoid, our body is naturally going to respond by becoming overweight. And we'll talk in future videos about some of those environmental factors and how you could start to address those environmental factors so that you aren't eliciting responses like being overweight and unhealthy, and you can start to control those environmental factors to become a healthy and fit, happy version of you. And one of the largest factors determining how our body is going to turn out and whether we're going to be unhealthy or not is our exposure to toxins. And in a future video, we're going to talk in more detail about exactly what toxins are, what are the toxins we are most commonly exposed to, and how we can begin to limit our exposure to those toxins so that we can become more healthy. If you haven't done so already, please give this video a thumbs up and be sure to share it with your friends on Facebook. Maybe you've tried to lose weight in the past, and maybe you had a hard time doing so. Well, that's because most diets are stupid and doomed to fail. To find out why diets fail, see my video in the upper left corner. One of the most influential factors which determines how our genetic template fills out is the quality of what we eat. Why is junk food bad for you, and what's the difference between junk foods and superfoods anyways? See the video in the upper right-hand corner. And if you don't like how your genetics have turned out, it's not completely your fault. Food companies have purposefully designed foods to cause you to overeat, and you can find out more about that in the lower left corner video. And what exactly does cause a person to gain weight and become fat? Check out this video in the bottom right corner.